Hey guys, welcome back. I just decided that I was gonna draw on my laptop this time. It had been a really long time since I'd done this because I've mostly just been using my Cintiq. But I'd gotten onto Mischief a while back and I was like, man, I really want to draw on here. It was my favorite place to sketch for years. And then I couldn't use it anymore because it started going really slow and getting, kind of jerky and stuff. And there was no one updating it anymore because some people bought it and then just absolutely nuked it, so that really sucked. So I'd used it for a little bit on my computer, I think a few days before this, or maybe the day before, and my sister was like, why didn't you record that? You could have made a video. How long did you even spend just sketching on there? And it had been a couple hours, I think. So whenever I finished the sketchbook video, the more recent one, I just decided I was going to sketch on here and try to film it. And let me say, I was at a very awkward angle. I ended up putting my computer up on one of the lap desks that I have and getting it at a nice angle where I could kind of see it. And my neck ended up at the weirdest angle when I was trying to film this because of where I had to put my camera. I couldn't do a top-down view anymore. So yeah, it was very weird. I had my neck crooked to the left and I was still trying to see kind of what I was drawing, so I think kind of what you're seeing on the camera is close-ish to what I was seeing. And then, yeah, obviously I tried to kind of just give you a flat view of the screen, so hopefully it's clear enough. And I do kind of move around the camera view so that you can see more of the pictures later on and try not to cut off as much. So hopefully this works out. This version of Mischief is the unpaid one. So I don't have any transform tool, and even then the one that they did have was not a lasso. I'm pretty sure it was just a rectangle, so most of the time I didn't really use it. I just erase if I messed up, and barring kind of having to adjust my angles on like a head or a hand or whatever, something small that, there's no reason to completely erase and redraw if I didn't have to. Yeah, I just mostly would erase and redraw whatever I needed to redraw. I wasn't super sure what I was going to be making, and most of the time when I was using this program, I went into it kind of with the idea that I was going to just practice drawing. So first I would just kind of warm up, draw whatever, then I would usually kind of draw some figures or something that was around me, an object or whatever, and then I would just start sketching from my imagination the best that I could. I was practicing perspective, practicing bodies, practicing drawing clothes, trying to do action because I drew very stiff poses. It took me a very long time to, I don't want to say remedy it because I think it's still a problem that I have, but it's definitely significantly better than it used to be, and I think it was because I practiced like this so much. And I mean a lot. It was hours and hours. I would go, sit on my bed, I would get out my really old laptop that hated me doing anything on it, including listening to music, and I would sketch for hours. Just that time that you have when you're younger where you don't really have to do anything. Yeah, that was just filled with drawing or writing something or staring up at the ceiling and imagining whatever I wanted. So yeah, it was a lot of time spent just practicing. Like I said last time, I have a Gumroad and I have some like really old PDFs of a bunch of the stuff that I sketched back in the day when I was practicing. And I did kind of like put more of the nicer-ish stuff and all that in there. This was the program that I took most of that from, because that's pretty much all I drew on. Yeah, right there explaining that I didn't really have a transform tool. I thought he was very off balance, but I didn't want to redraw it, so I did the lazy thing. But yeah, his legs ended up a little short, his head's kind of big, but it is what it is. I could not see the exact flat angle of what I was drawing. So it's not super perfect. But I think even then I knew that some parts probably needed to be redrawn, and I just didn't want to do it. Not something I would have let myself get away with before. I would have completely erased it and started over or drawn another next to it, which is kind of what I do when I'm drawing in ballpoint pen, and just fixed the mistakes that I made. It was kind of funny watching this and realizing that a bunch of the stuff that I do in my sketchbook, especially that orange one, is pretty much the same kind of habits that I built up on this program, where I'm just slowly sketching and then erasing out the really, really messy lines, and then I'm going in and adding tone and accent color pretty much the exact same way that I would in that sketchbook. And maybe that's from when I was using my tone sketchbook tons, trying to practice from photographs and life and stuff like that. I still didn't do it as much as I probably should have, but maybe that's kind of where I got that habit from. Because I got really into tone sketchbooks. I think it was a big thing at the time, and I thought it was going to improve what I did so much. So I got a couple and markers and things like that. But because I like drawing on every inch of the page, front to back, it kind of irritated me with the markers that I couldn't. And that's when I skipped over to the Pigma ones. And started just using those because you couldn't see them on the other side. And so I could keep doing the studies back to front. And I would not have to worry about only leaving sketches or ending up with a sketch that I liked on the back of the paper. And I know that some people will just take paper and kind of like paste it on there. But then it feels like there's two pieces of paper that I can't draw on the back of, and kind of drives me nuts. I did cut out where I did that one on the left because it wasn't very interesting, in my opinion. I thought I'd try to do a running pose. I used to do this specific pose a lot, just to warm up. I actually need to do a better job. I need to do more simple walk cycle poses, because these ones, I think they're just a little too much, and never do I see people running all over the place at full speed like this, unless I'm watching, I don't know, some sort of mob anime or something. So yeah, I need to do some more casual poses. And also maybe something more dynamic that has pushed perspective. It's very intimidating, but there are times that I do it and I like the way that it looks. Obviously when it turns out nice. And I definitely like seeing it in other people's styles. I think it's very interesting. And it adds so much to characters. Because not everyone's going to be, like moving the exact same way. And I think it adds a personality that even just the look of the character can't show or make clear. So, yeah, I think I need to do that more. Add something more to my doopy little characters. I really like that muscle right there. The one that's against the butt and the hip. It's really, really nice, especially when you're pulling the leg up or someone's sitting with their legs up. Kind of pops out right there in a C shape and then goes down the thigh. Whenever I started using it, I felt like stuff started to look a little bit more 3D. I guess the same with that tendon that's on the inside of the leg. Yeah, he definitely looks like he's running for his life. Actually, when I was practicing anatomy, no one ever got clothes, so I just drew nude people all the time. So whenever I tried to start putting clothes on them, I added way too many wrinkles. I think that's pretty common, but it looked terrible. And yeah, I have some notebooks that are across from me right now, and I remember drawing just horribly wrinkly clothes. There was actually this one picture in particular that I spent hours on in one of those notebooks. I was laying on the floor, on my stomach, just sketching with a pencil, and I drew every single leaf on the ground. And it was a lot. I think it covered the entirety of the ground. Plus, I think a couple trees and then the person sitting there. And it was so busy that they got pretty much lost because of their clothes and because of all the leaves. So, thank goodness for eventually learning a little bit about contrast and how to draw details without drawing too many details so that things actually look clear. And then whenever I was first doing anatomy, of course, trying to draw every single muscle and not realizing that you could just hint at them and that was okay. Which got better later on when I started drawing kind of like the in-between, a very thin, unathletic person versus, a super bodybuilder. And then I was kind of hitting that in-between space. And I started with like some more average bodies and then slightly strong or very thin or whatever. I think that helped a lot, realizing you could still make somebody look muscular or you could still show some anatomy, which I spent all that time learning it and practicing it all the time that I really wanted to show the anatomy that I'd learned. Realizing, I could just hint at that. I didn't have to waste all of this time showing all of the details of every single muscle group. Same with clothes, I guess. It probably didn't help that I followed a lot of people who did academic drawing for a very long time. And most of that just seems like it's showing a lot of your knowledge in shading and anatomy and composition and all that fun stuff. And while it definitely has its place, it was very different from what I was trying to make at the time. And that was just me trying to practice because I really wanted to get into comics. And even still to this day, that's like one of the bigger passions of mine. Something that I actually tried and realized I really like it, even though I'm not that good at it. And I would really like to improve and continue making comics when I can. Just combining story and pictures and things like that was really cool to me. This guy's face ended up looking really soft, I think, by the time I finished it. Not like squishy or overly digital, but soft in the way that skin is soft. Just nice and squishy, and I used to practice that a ton. Now I think I kind of need to go back and practice that a little bit more. I'm always impressed by the screen protector on my laptop. Not impressed by putting it on because that was really hard. It actually frustrated me so bad I almost gave up. But I didn't, and it went on. And it's okay. It's not perfect, but it works. But anyway, I really like the sound of it. It sounds really nice. It sounds almost like drawing in my sketchbook. I have one on my iPad that's my favorite. It's the iCares screen protector, and I really like the way that that one sounds. And I think they're pretty close, so. I think this one was a Super Shields or something like that. I would have to double check and make sure of that, but if iCares had made one for my laptop or at the size that my laptop is, I would have been all over that. I'm just kind of noodling now. I mean, I'm putting the fingers in, but there's a couple times where I was just buying myself a few minutes to think, and I'll just add some shading or whatever in there. See, when I start adding the gray, especially after I put in some of the like rough occlusion, which I don't do all the ones that I should, and even go a little dark in some places. But I think whenever I'm adding the gray in, it really changes how this one ends up looking. There's some that, I don't know, when you add the gray tone, you just think, man, this looks much better just black and white. And some of them, the gray just, so good. Just add something. Something more. And this one was kind of like that, because I feel like it definitely made his face look like it was getting squished. And it added a little bit to the sweater that I had put on him. And even his hair. I think it added nicely to his hair and kind of separated it out from the fingers. So that was really nice. The whole time I'm watching this, I'm just thinking about how my neck felt. I had already been drawing for a while whenever I was doing that sketchbook one, and to get this one set up and then sit down and realize I was going to have my head at the weirdest angle ever. I wasn't sure. I was like, I hope this doesn't give me a horrible headache. Thankfully, I survived. I only got the slightest headache from a very stiff neck. This one that I'm drawing right now had no business taking as long as it did. I fussed with it for so long, and it did not need that much work on it. I think I just started feeling a little bit uncomfortable drawing the body, which is weird. It's a position I've drawn a million times. But I was just like, oh my god. The world is watching, and I could not do it very fast. I kind of reach a point where I can live with it. But geez, it just took so long. As soon as I drew the curve in the back, I pretty much knew that he was going to be aquatic. I used to draw this kind of pose, but from the front and laying down, just almost a fetal position. And then the person would have wings or whatever. I think I have one that's very close to that in one of those PDFs that's my character Ashen Crow, and he has one of my other characters, Little Feathers, and he's just protecting him. And that one was supposed to have some sort of symbolism. I think you can guess what the symbolism was. It was just like protection and care and whatever. The way I drew these fingers is the weirdest thing and not how I do it ever. I usually do kind of like an outline, or I'll do one side and then erase out where the overlap will be. But I erased them out like I was painting. It was weird. I do not do that. Messed up some of the anatomy in his back. One day I want to try the Stadler Jumbo Norris, or Norris Jumbo, or whatever it is, and see if the eraser works on my laptop. The Wacom One pen's working just fine, so I don't really need to replace it or anything, but I would like to test that one at some point. And eventually crack this poor little thing open and put a little extra space in it. All of the art files and things that I do for our business, plus the sketching and everything, kind of takes up some space. This one's another one where I think the tone ended up carrying it a bit. I mean, I think I do adjust my line weight slightly, but definitely needed more. I needed to kind of pull that tail forward and then push some of the body back. Yeah, I was trying to add a little bit of texture on his back, on his shoulder, in the tail. I actually really like drawing scales, and I didn't even draw very many scales on this guy. Which must have bothered me, because here recently I was drawing a fish person, which has a bit to do with the book I was reading. My sister had really wanted me to read The Bear and the Nightingale, and I wish I could remember what the author's name is right now. But it's really, really good. Like, really, really good, and there ends up being... Like, it's got a bunch of, like, Russian fairy tale lore kind of stuff in it, like mythology and stuff. It's really good. And one of the little aquatic beings in there is super dangerous, and I really, really liked the idea of her, so I cannot stop drawing water creatures. I think 2 pages in my sketchbook very recently. I have one where they're in the water and their eyes are glowing, where my paper begged me to stop putting the little water marker on it. And then I have another one with the creature kind of breathing in and then pushing like a beam out. I think this picture right here is the last one that I do. It does have a little jump here and there in it, but for the most part it was real time. I did a lot of jumps on the other ones because they took me so long. So I figured that I would try to keep this one as close to real time without as many jumps as I could. I even went longer than I meant to on it because my family came home and they were bringing in the groceries and I didn't help because I was in the middle of filming. So you'll probably hear some people moving up and down the hall or whatever. But yeah, that's because I was supposed to be helping, but I was filming instead. This one's very close to kind of what I did in my sketchbook that day in ballpoint pen. Although obviously I can erase and whatnot way easier. When I got to the end of this, I went to OBS and it was just showing my screen as dark. And I thought that it had died and hadn't recorded everything, and I was super sad. Because I had forgotten to turn my brightness all the way up on my laptop so that it would film better. It just went completely out of my mind. So I was like, oh, my footage is gonna be crap. Thankfully, OBS had worked. Everything was fine. It was probably something I did, probably from minimizing the tab or whatever. The tab, the program. The window. Kind of like these ones that I did right here. The more wiggly spikes. Kind of made me think of an elk. When they're calling and they have their heads up and back. I had recently drawn one for our little business. For our laser engraver. We were testing that out a while ago. It was actually turning out pretty well. Thankfully, we did some key fobs and we did some hat patches. We had tested a bit on some wood, but definitely working on the leather and things was a lot nicer because the scrap wood pieces that I have are very uneven and they're not smooth like a basswood would be. They've got a lot of grain, and I just used them to practice when I was messing with my burner, my wood burning tool. And it was a pain in the butt because of all of the grain. Because I was trying to practice my shading and it just was not even, so I'd have to get between them and try to find the pieces that had less of the hard grains and more of the like little soft patches in between, just to practice the shading and kind of get control over the temperature, figure out what was good for what. That was when I realized when you use those on press board, it like pushes up the little loose pieces. That sucked sometimes. So I was trying to do a nice gradient or something, which wasn't always perfect anyway because it was practice, but man, it would just come up and completely ruin what I had just put up onto the little ornaments. But it's fine, I kind of started to figure out how I could get around that. A bit out of practice now, but you can kind of tell here that I was trying to speed up a little bit. Get some of the details in that I wanted so that I could be finished because I knew I was running out of time. I was kind of hoping that before the day ended I would be able to edit it just a little bit more. Hatching. Same thing I had just done in my sketchbook. was kind of impressed that the program worked so well with OBS running. I thought it would maybe slow it down and make it almost unusable, and I was going to have to just switch over to Clip, but nope, it worked. I really like drawing details in the ears. And even detailed ears in general. Ears and noses. They're very interesting. We're almost finished on this guy. I don't know why the sternocleidoid was giving me issues. In both of the videos I made that day. I really like the curves that it has, and even that it's kind of thicker towards the top than the bottom and stuff. It looks really nice, but I was struggling. Could not get it right. Some freckles. Kind of trying to define his deltoid a little bit better, because I had the shape a bit wrong. You can't see all the heads of it very clearly, or even where the trapezius kind of like goes into the top part of the shoulder, and it was frustrating me. Not horribly, like I wasn't freaking out over it, but I knew I was doing it wrong. There he is. I like to put the dates in my files. I usually name the files with the dates. So let me know what you guys think of this format. It was a little difficult to set up, but I enjoyed it anyways. Kind of going back to my roots. I appreciate you guys watching this. Hope you have a good day or night, and bye.